Hi, thanks so much for joining us at Inclusion Fusion. My name is Katie Weatherby. I'm with Key Ministry, and today we have a really special treat. I'm here today with Chuck Swindoll and Colleen Swindoll. Chuck is the co-founder and chairman of the board of Insight for Living. He's also the senior pastor at Stonebriar Church and the chancellor of Dallas Theological Seminary. Colleen serves as the director of special needs ministry for Insight for Living, and she's a graduate of Trinity University, with a degree in communication, psychology, and education. And those are all fabulous roles and credentials, but we're here today to talk about your most important roles, that of a mom and a dad and grandfather of a child with special needs. So thank you very much for joining
You're
us
welcome.
today. So how has the experience of raising a child and a grandchild with multiple and very complicated disabilities affected your family relationships?
Well, it's been difficult at times because we have no experience in this. And when you enter anything as a novice, you naturally don't know what is the right thing to say or do. I've learned from Colleen, be who you are. And she's wonderful with that. And because of that, a lot of the awkwardness that you would feel early on has passed. I don't feel any at all now. It's not like the awkwardness makes it difficult. It's the unexpected. No 2 days and no 2 reactions could ever be predicted in living with a child with disabilities. I would also add that we don't have resentment about this. I can honestly say we've never, if you really do believe, and I won't preach here, but if you really do believe in a sovereign God, having Jonathan in our family is no accident. God didn't go, oh, wow, I missed on that one. Oh, he didn't miss.
I thought that he did.
Yeah, I know. But down deep inside, we know he makes us as we are. We'll get more into that. But knowing that and having a good, solid theology has helped us weather some of what would have been otherwise some pretty stormy days. Finally, I would say our entire family has taken part in this journey together. Me, no less or no more than my wife, Cynthia, and our other children, Colleen's siblings. She has another sister, and she has 2 brothers. And he is as accepted as a part of our 10 grandchildren as the firstborn or the middleborn. He has a variety that none of the others have.
Oh yeah. No, I think there have been times where it is frustrating. And I really do understand the frustrations that families would have because it's nothing like what they expected. John can sometimes be hard to understand. And
That's true.
yeah, and
I don't know what he's saying. That is a little frustrating. She always knows what he's saying, and I will often say,
he looks at me like,
yeah, just
I'll say,
let me
well,
help me, because I don't want him to think, that he's weird or something. He just can't. He knows what he's saying
Right.
very clearly, and he's very lucid and very verbal.
and how frustrating is that when you cannot
Imagine that.
say what's going on in your mind? You cannot get that out.
I've often thought of that. Yeah.
I mean, I just think, what would it be like to be John? Knowing that he is different and he is aware of some of those differences. And there are times it has been difficult. It affects every part of our lives because a child like Jonathan that can't process some of the neurological things, that is what's called sensory sensitive. He'll say he's hot, he's burning hot, or with his separation anxiety, I remember that one time I was gone and you're like, never forget the clock. You remember that? Because he kept saying, where's mom? Where's mom? Mom. When's mom coming home? Mom.
Didn't go very well.
Well,
And I said, you need a clock. You
this
need
is a great
visual.
answer. See, I wouldn't have known that. It's some of those techniques along the way
Sure.
that make it a lot smoother. and makes the frustration level lower. All I'd have to do is say, when the little hand is here and the big hand is there, she'll be home. Case closed.
Things
And
like
it-
never, don't ever forget the clock.
Yeah.
Like, I get that. And
You know, we got clocks all over the house. It never dawned on me to do that.
Right.
And of course, when you've got digital clocks, it's even easier. Because
Yeah.
he can read numbers and,
Right.
and he does well with it.
Well, and I appreciate your openness to learning what works.
Oh,
There are
yeah.
times that parents will report to us,
yes.
you know, gee, I wish it were easier with the grandparents, because what we hear is that we're not being strict enough,
Oh.
or, you know, that child just needs a good spanking, and
Oh,
or
my
you were just like that when you were little and you turned out fine.
Well, thanks, Mom.
Right.
See, she didn't
So-
turn out fine, so we don't ever say, no. It's a joke.
But-
Okay? It's,
But I'm okay with
I know
that.
exactly what you're saying. I've seen I've heard them do that.
Right.
And I want to pull them aside and say, don't say that.
Right, right.
Now, they mean well. I don't think grandparents sit on the edge of their bed thinking, how can I make my daughter miserable today?
No,
Or how can I make
no.
him feel... They think, okay, how can we fix this? I've, for years ago, stopped trying to fix people, including Jonathan. You
And me.
accept them, of course. You accept them as they are. Is she great? Yeah, and you know, Colleen has made it easier too, because this is serious now. I don't know of a better mother on the planet than Colleen.
Oh,
I don't know of a better one.
it's because you don't know many mothers anymore.
I know thousands of mothers. I had a mother, and I know how my mother might have been with it. But when you are like she is, understanding, discerning, knowledgeable, she will often say to me, Dad, what this is called is, that helps me. I didn't even know it had a title. She said, this is all very normal in that realm. And it helps. And I remember that. I'll sometimes say to her, this is part of that separation thing. Yeah, this is part of it. When you have a knowledge, you don't try to fix something in a superficial way. Furthermore, let's face it, we've done as best we can with our own children. Let's not try to parent other children. You know, a little word to the wise. And the difference is, she's got Jonathan 24/7. We'll have him an evening, or an overnight, or we'll have him for a swim, or a meal. And we always say, always when she's left, and her husband too, we'll say, he goes home with them. He stays for a while with us, and we'll often pray.
It's so important.
We often say,
Right.
Lord, she's got to be as tired as we are,
Right.
probably more so. And she's got to deal with all the things that go with medications, getting him to bed, talking him into whatever, because he's 14
I know.
with a will of his own.
Right.
Big
Now, he got that, I think, from you.
From his grandfather, right.
Yeah, not me.
And that's what I like most about him. He's got a will. And yet, I got to say, she knows how to handle that. She knows when to really be firm. And I know we're going to be on the question, but
No, that's okay.
But she will say, that's enough.
Right.
Stop or back off, Jonathan, and he will. I don't feel comfortable ever doing that, because he's not my child.
Right. Right.
My job is to love him, and it's God's job to grow him up. It's his mother's job and father's job to help him understand himself better. My job, when he's with me, is to introduce him to what a grandfather is. And Cynthia's role is to help him know what a grandmother is. He's calling me grandfather these days. He
Well,
used to call me Bubba, like all the grandkids. Hello, grandfather. And I go, I've got a new title now.
Yeah.
Grandfather.
Stepping
You
up
never-
for
He must have read that in some...
or no, because he's not reading well. Yeah, or sometimes I'm mother, or ma'am, or his
You ever
new
call
one
you
is,
Colleen? It drives me crazy when kids call their mother by their first name.
Colleen?
Hey, Pauline, would you come over here? Or
Excuse me.
Frank?
That would be mother
really
to
wants
you.
your attention.
Well, he
Yep.
does that in all kinds of ways. But I would say to families who don't have the acceptance of other family members, it's a double problem. It doubles the pain.
Man, I
it
can't even.
doubles the anxiety. It doubles, triples the grief that they're already feeling.
They forget that there is a lack of capacity. You know, if I cannot use this arm, let's say it simply won't move, it's paralyzed.
Right.
For you to expect me to hold this Bible with both hands is unrealistic. I can't do it. And for you to remember, I don't have the use of that, is just wonderfully helpful. So you won't ask me to do something nor will you expect me to handle a ball like other people can handle a ball, or to put my arms around someone. I only have the one arm. And I think with Jonathan, he has these areas, and I simply chalk it up for Jonathan's unique put together. My dad used to talk about our put together. His put together sometimes is hilarious. And we laugh out, and he laughs too. He has a great sense of humor. And I didn't realize it until he was staying with us, and it just burst out, and we're laughing like crazy. Of course, I love a sense of humor, and that linked us up right away. When I finished, he put his arm around me and just hugged me.
Yeah.
Isn't that something? Like,
That's a precious moment.
you understand me.
Right.
And he will say to every person, I kid you not, when he's leaving, I love you.
Yes, he does.
I mean, it's just an open heart, and I think families miss that
Yeah.
part
Right.
of their uniqueness.
Well, we get so sophisticated. They know it. You know, I've had him go to the car and then walk back in the house, open the door, and say, "Bubba, I love you. Where's Nana? We'll go get Cynthia. She'll come. I love you, Nana." Isn't that great?
It's great, and
Yeah.
if they don't say it back, he keeps saying it. I love you. I love you.
You're
I love you. I'm like, I love you, John. I love you, love you, love you. I would also say that sometimes people get in their own way, and they desire for things to be a certain way because it makes them feel better or it makes them look better, and it's a self-focused mentality.
Yep.
And so once you don't care, not caring, but once you free yourself
Yeah.
to embrace without condition as Christ does,
That's a big step.
then it is. It comes because you're pointing,
I know.
because it's self-awareness. And if we lack the internal view, why is this a struggle for me? Why do I not want to accept this?
I've determined never to let anything he does embarrass me. When I am embarrassed, then I don't function well. Then I get self-aware. But when I see him do something unusual, and I think it's a little different, I'll just say,
It's hilarious.
yeah, I'll just say to myself, that's Jonathan.
That's John.
You are something else.
Like when he saw your feet that one day.
Right?
Bubba, those are ugly.
Yeah. He was sitting in my lap, and he was much smaller, and he got real close to me, and he goes, "Bubba, your teeth are really crooked." That's before I had him fixed. You know, I said, "I know." He said, "You also have bad breath. It's really bad." Right?
That was the plot point.
So honesty is a gift of his?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no
What he
measure.
lacks is the social graces.
That's right.
And
That's right.
you know, if adults would just remember that.
Sure.
If you're with someone, I was in a doctor's office yesterday waiting for my appointment, and a man came in that has obviously had brain surgery, so he's been affected with his motions. And my first thought was not in any way to think, oh, what it was going to do, which I would have done before Jonathan entered our life. My first thought was, can I help him in some way to find a seat? Because he was struggling a little. His wife was with him. She was so great with him. And he finally sat down. It's easy to be embarrassed.
So Jonathan, really, in your experiences as being a parent and a grandparent to Jonathan, he has really changed your ability to minister to others.
Oh, my goodness.
So,
Oh, yeah.
So if we take
Well,
that,
other people think it. He just says it.
right?
I mean,
right.
how many times have we thought something And thank the Lord in heaven, it doesn't come out on our face. But for
I'm
John,
thinking as a pastor, if I said the things he said, oh.
that was stupid. I mean,
This is one of the funny stories she's ever told me. They're at a grocery store, and there's a lady in front of them checking her things out, and Jonathan is right at the level of
her table.
of her body, and he leans forward,
and I'm thinking, oh dear Lord, because the grocery store.
and then he goes, he's smelling. Well, you will smell people
It's a
sometime,
leather coat.
and you will simply put it out of your mind. So will I. But not Jonathan.
No.
And now we've got to be careful to help train him not to say it, because that can be offensive. So there are some boundaries.
Well, yeah, and what I do is I'm constantly
You're aware.
like a bug with their antenna.
Oh, of course. You see him doing that.
Here's going to be a problem. He's stuck on something, and really in this situation, it was a beautiful leather coat, and I thought, well, of course, he wants to smell it.
He smells the leather, and yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
it probably would have been best for me to have him look at the candy, but he smelled it, and she kind of turned around like, okay, that's rude. And because I'm okay with John.
Right.
But she doesn't know John.
Sure.
Do you ever say he's autistic?
Oh, I always give an answer
Okay.
that respects him, but allows someone to understand.
Yeah, I never heard you describe that.
Always.
That's very helpful. But I wouldn't want to embarrass him. Like, someday he may feel strange, like nobody else has that big A in front of the word, and how would that make him feel? But you
Well, yeah, I have said,
are special needs, or
well, yeah, I like with this lady in the grocery store. I mean, her
Uh-huh.
coat was gorgeous,
Uh-huh.
and so she kind of turned around perturbed, which would be anybody's reaction.
Right.
And I'm
right.
thinking, that's irritating. So I say, you know what? I apologize if that was rude to you. My son has a lot of learning differences, and one of them is
That's a good
he
word.
smells things really strongly. And your leather coat is not only beautiful, but it smells good.
And what did she say?
It changes the attitude.
isn't it true?
Yeah, one of the statistics, if you want to talk about Steve, it was a big statistic thing, is that most often people are offended because they don't understand. And offensive things happen. Like
Right.
he'll burp in public, and we're working on this thing. But at the same time, if someone knows that there's a difference, 70% change their attitude. I mean,
So information is really helpful.
Very.
yeah.
It's a
you
good
guys have
statement.
little
Good statement,
cards
Katie.
when we go to church. I
Sure.
haven't done this yet, it's on my to-do list. But to put cards together that say to people, my name is John. My mom and dad are teaching me about the Lord. I struggle with making some noise, whatever. And on the back of the card, list the websites that they could go to understand. And I do. I
You
want to
give
do that
people those
before.
cards around?
I tell
I've
them
never
that
seen
now.
you do that. What a
Well,
great
because I
idea.
haven't printed them yet. But I
That's a
tell
great
them,
idea.
But I tell them because he'll make noises, and sometimes.
Well, he has
Tourette's.
Tourette's, and so those noises happen. I don't
And it can be
pay
irritating.
any attention, but of course we live with. But if you don't, it's like, why doesn't she keep him quiet? Because they think of that as just a child out of control.
Right.
But
I can't tell you.
once they know,
Ah.
you mentioned knowledge, the ability to, they in fact can enjoy him more.
I had a student who was in a library class, and his peers understood that he had tics.
Yeah.
But the library lady didn't understand, and
Wow.
so he was having some vocal tics, and she kept saying, "Be quiet, be quiet." Finally, one of the other kids said,
Wow.
"He can't help it. It's his Tourette syndrome. Don't you know about Tourette syndrome?" And the other kids, the typically developing peers, explained it
Oh,
to the
my
library
goodness.
lady.
Okay,
so
that is
as the
so-
church, I think we really have to help kids to learn how to be the church. And that's, I think, as important as teaching them the Lord's Prayer and Bible verses, really teaching them how to build each other up.
Well,
So-
when he's at his home, he's very spontaneous. So whatever happens at the table, he can talk about it, whatever. In church, we all know you remain quiet
Sure.
most of the time. Or if you're singing, you really can sing, and he loves to sing along with the rest of us. And now when I pray, in a pastoral prayer, he probably wants to talk about that at the same time, which you don't do. He doesn't know the rules. So helping them know his put together, the thing, that really, I think, just makes all the difference in the world.
Well, and he'll sing, and he loves Don. And he wants to always go and love.
Yes, he does.
Oh, he loves Don.
He does.
The music.
Don's our minister of music, yeah.
Okay.
And I asked his assistant if she would send the words and the songs the week before so we could be practicing them on the way to school and all that. Well, the difference is that he wants to direct the
He wants to direct it. Yeah.
And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, if the hymn gets any louder, he's going to be standing up directing.
When we get louder, he really gets louder and he gets into that.
And one couple was quite perturbed. And I had not said anything, so I turned around at the end of the service. We were all leaving, and I said, I'm really sorry if he was offensive to you. He has so many different challenges. And one of them is singing, and he loves it. And we're teaching him to worship. But I really apologize. I should have mentioned that earlier. And their countenance became so much more tender. And I just wonder what the Lord, when we are struggling so much, how compassionate he is towards us. Because he knows we struggle. We just don't like to show that we struggle.
That's what we have learned as a family. A lot more about how the Lord works with us. We're all disabled. We all have areas that are not developed well. Every one of us. But we learn to cover it up. You know, we get slick, or we get sophisticated, or we get proud, and we never let. Rather than saying, you know what, I too struggle with saying the right thing at the right time. I too say things at the wrong time. Or I shouldn't just overlook this. I think this morning I might have been offensive, and just say it. But we are, when we get to be adults, we become cover-up artists.
Well, and again, going back to what we talked about earlier, what I noticed that is so helpful with your relationship as a dad and a daughter, but also as an extended family, is your willingness to be taught and to learn about Jonathan, your willingness to share information, and also the humility between you, knowing that, you know, I don't know everything, and I am going to make mistakes as a mom, as a grandpa.
Well, every time I'm with Colleen, I learn something else about her son. And without her even knowing it, she's teaching us as grandparents things that are common knowledge to her because she's been a student of this, but it's not common knowledge to us. And as a result, we do better as time passes. We also get to know God a lot better.
Well, talk to me a little bit about how the experience of having Jonathan in your family has affected your relationship with the Lord.
Well, I would say, first of all, I have a deeper compassion for those who falter, who can't keep up, for those for whom it takes a long time to get it. Now, just rank disobedience is one thing, but struggling, I have a lot more patience with the struggler. I had a man in my study not long ago who was just in tears, and he came to apologize to me, of all things. And he wanted me to know that in a certain message I had mentioned something, and he thought I may have been referring to him. That's the most amazing thing. In fact, I've had a guy say to me, my wife talked to you, right? And I go,
I don't know who she is.
Right.
I really don't know who you are. I'm sorry.
And he said, no, she called or emailed you or something. I said, no. You're telling me she did not contact anyway, back to this other guy. And I said to him, because of my experience with Jonathan, I said, you know what? You've shown yourself to be a great man just to walk in here. You don't owe me an apology. You're learning the life. And this is a tough journey for you, and this step is a tough one for you to master. You'll get there. He just cried because he really thought it'd be a kind of a rebuke, and he thought he had it coming. And I said, "Oh, we don't do that. We don't deal with people like that. And the Lord doesn't deal with that. Like, you've been to me 4 times with that. How many times have I got to answer this prayer? He doesn't do that. He says, when we say to him, here I am again, with the same issue, and he'll say, what issue? He forgives and forgets. As far as the east is from the west. And we need to be that way. And I've learned to be more that way. I had a long ways to go in that, because I wasn't raised like that. So in many ways, Jonathan's kind of helping to raise a lot of us to learn things.
What about you and your relationship with God?
I mean, where could I begin with that?
Go ahead and say it.
Sorry.
Take your time.
And you can stop for a second.
No, we don't stop. It's the best part of the whole thing.
I had this image, having been raised in the church, that, you know, when you do what's right, kind of like when David picked up the stones, he was going to throw them at Goliath. At that moment, he had no clue what would happen. When Moses has to lead these people out, and he comes to the Red Sea, he didn't know it was going to split. And so I had been taught all these stories, and in the end, the Red Sea splits, and Goliath dies, and so I thought, well, if I do these things, then it's going to be great. And then when it got harder and harder, I thought, well, you're not the God I thought you were. And I felt really tricked. And I started talking to him about that. And I'm so thankful that John, I wish I could talk and cry at the same time.
You are.
I would never expect John to go out and be any different than what he is. He cannot leave the house and be without his tips. He can't hide, like so many of us do, these things that we think aren't appropriate. And for the Lord to expect that we could go out of our home and not be broken in some way would not be our all-loving Lord. And so he reflects to me every day, Colleen, as much as you love me, if Jonathan was speaking, and I couldn't love him any more than I do, how much more does the Lord love you, Mom? When you go out and fumble or make a mistake or say something wrong, he's a picture of Christ to me. And that's very humbling. I really had it out with the Lord for a long time. Doubted my faith. I think when you doubt your faith, it purifies it and it synthesizes it. It's an excellent place to be at moments if you have some great help. But the Lord became, as Henry Cloud would say, not the God of my Bible stories, but the God of His Word. And in His Word, He promises to be faithful. And He promises to be just. And I may not understand that when things are not faithful and just in my life. Just like John can't understand, Mom, why are you asking me to do that? Or he may not ever understand certain things, but I want him to do that and train him in a way that he should go because it's best for him. And so often with the Lord we say, all right, now what? Were you on vacation? You know, I've said about everything you can say. And I think the Lord grows closer to us because He just wraps His arms around us as we struggle in this life. We can't see, we can't think like He does. Jonathan can't think like we do. So it's revolutionized. I mean, I came to know Christ, know Jesus as my Savior in my 30s.
Because of John.
Yeah, because I was so proud, I think. I read every book. I read 8 books before I even had Ashley. Obviously, that didn't help. So I thought if I do all these things right and take all the steps, then, you know, it's A plus B equals C. Well, that's that couldn't be further from the truth when you look at Scripture. And so I've been humbled by having children and by understanding now there doesn't need to be any room for judgment. Why would you think that about someone? You know, the kids crack up with me because someone will be slower in traffic or someone will be walking slower and they're like, ugh, Mom, go around. And I just say, you guys have no idea what their morning was like. He could be driving home from a funeral where he just lost his wife.
Right.
It could take him 4 hours to get out the door.
In 4 years to get over his grief.
So that's what's happening.
I would add to this, and just to clarify, we call it doubt. I'm not sure it's doubt. I think it's becoming reflective. And you got to get rid of the fairy tales. This is not a book of fairy tales. Actually, in this book, there are more stories that don't end well than do. Now, the reason we know the ones that do end well is because they make great stories. We like we live happily ever after, and the hero wins, and the villain is killed. You know, David is hunted and haunted by Saul 12, 13 years in the wilderness of Judea. Have you ever been to the wilderness of Judea? We're talking barren. He lives in a cave with 600 malcontents. He feigns insanity to find safety away from Saul. This is our David. I've never heard a kid talk about David feigning insanity. He's always the
hero.
David that throws
the
throws the rock and kills the giant, or the king. He's also the David who lusted after Bathsheba and brought shame to the throne. That's our David. Learn that story too. It keeps us from, and we probably haven't been good teachers of that. You know, I should speak someday a series on failures in the Bible. I would have more material than a year would allow me.
And we don't want to hear from
Right, and there's something happens to us, we hear about failure all the time. But we need to hear about it some.
Yeah.
We need to know there are mysteries that will never, ever be solved.
Well, I wanted to ask you that, and this is coming more from my perspective as the mom of a child who went through a significant health issue and had disabilities as a result. Sometimes I think we do sort of fall in love with happy endings, and then as Christians we tend to want to say, well, look, we prayed so hard, and see, prayer matters, and this kid got better. But when we were in the hospital with our daughter, the kid next to her in the ICU died, and I had ridden the elevator with that mom the night before.
Wow.
And she didn't love her child any less than I love my child. She didn't pray any less fervently for her child. And yet when we talk about that, oftentimes Christians might say, well, that was just God's will. And to me,
Well, that helps.
Right, and it doesn't. And
Right.
I could never quite reconcile why when things are going well, we cheer and say it's because we pray, and when things don't go well, it must be the will of God.
Right. You know, you've hit a hot button with me there, and I don't have a lot of patience with people who feel the need to speak for God. We need to be very careful when we quote God.
Okay.
We're dealing with the dying. Don't promise those around her she will live. God hasn't told you that. He hasn't spoken in this room. She may die in a minute. She may live 8 more years, become a picture of health. Don't go there. It's presumption to do that. And it's wrong to deal with the tender feelings of people by giving them a script. I prayed, and God's going to read. Remember Johnny Erickson talking about
I know, I was just going to use that example.
It was a great moment in her life when she said, I'll be in this chair for the rest of my life. I admired her more at that moment than I had before, and I did not could admire anymore. What's she doing? She's facing the fact that this is my situation. I don't live for the day I'm going to walk away from this chair. I will die in this chair, in that bed. And she's not bitter about it. Now, for some theology, oh, that's heresy. You know, a prayer a day keeps the devil away. It's nonsense. It's voodoo theology. It's bargaining with God. If I pray now 2 hours tonight, tomorrow he'll be better. If he's not better, 3 hours tonight. God doesn't operate like that. Simple prayer is, Lord, he's yours or she's yours. I'm going to trust her or him into your care, and I need peace with whatever you may desire. Remind me, I'm the clay. You're the potter. I'm the servant. You're the master.
So what then do you say to parents? Because we hear a lot from parents in our ministry. How could God have let this happen to my child? How could the good and loving God you talk about allow my child to have autism or to have cancer?
Let me speak briefly, and then I want you to address that. First, we need to understand God's full character, not just his goodness. Say that again. God has a full spate of character, full spectrum, all the way from his absolute adoring love to his raging wrath. That's our God. His is compassion. He also has the day when he says, that's enough. He's still long-suffering, but he has a day when he says, no more. And he brings discipline. Because he's a good God. He's a good parent. So we have to present God in his full spectrum. Second, we have to be careful about quoting God. I said that earlier. Third, we have to leave room in his will to do things that are different from what we wish or thought or hoped for. My God, the God I love and serve and preach, I'm open-ended. He's free to do whatever he wishes. Psalm 115:3. Our God is in the heavens. He does whatever he pleases. Again, our God is in the heavens, meaning he's over all. He does whatever he pleases. That's his sovereign right. When you come to terms with that, you don't live this week thinking early next week, I'll get my wish. No, early next week, I'll get his will. And I adapt to that will. Go ahead. How you deal with that?
I took a few statistics on our Facebook page because I think when you honestly, there's a sense of anonymity with social networking. So I said, where are your struggles? Where have they been the most? And it was tragic to me to find out that 99%, again, this is a statistic that I followed up on. Probably Steve could correct me on it. 99% don't ever return to church.
Don't ever what?
Return to church. Because people will say, because they're uncomfortable with the mystery or the space
It's a good
that
word,
belongs
mystery.
to the Lord, they'll say, well, they should have 2 other kids. I
Oh.
think one died.
Yeah, we heard that. When we had a miscarriage, we were told, well, you have a wonderful son.
And I
But we
want to
don't have a daughter that was 5 months along and the umbilical cord strangled her and died in the womb. And Cynthia aborted the child prematurely, and we sobbed. It was a death of a little girl. I don't need to hear I have a healthy son. I know I do. That doesn't help.